Hey everyone, welcome back to Dev Parkour. In this video, I want to talk about MySQL. Um, Sometimes people call it MySQL. Either way, we're talking about the database engine that was originally built a while back. When I started using it, it was an open source project of Sun Microsystems before they got acquired by Oracle in 2008, somewhere in that time frame. Then Oracle took it over. Oracle since changed the license, so it was a little bit less open source friendly, causing the fork called MariaDB to become its own project. So if you use MariaDB or MySQL, I'm going to refer to them collectively as MySQL. By and large, they're very similar. They're effectively the same from a usage perspective. But obviously one comes with a different license than the other. So, and I think they have started to diverge a little bit more than that at this point. But I'm going to consider them collectively MySQL. Now, why MySQL as opposed to Postgres or Microsoft SQL Server or Oracle DB? MySQL, probably because of its very permissive license, just kind of took the world by storm. It's very popular. It's used a lot with WordPress, which is the most popular website platform on the internet. And that's despite the fact that it's actually not very standards compliant. There is a standard for the SQL language and how databases that adhere to this standard or theoretically use this standard are supposed to operate. It's not binding. There's nothing that says all databases must conform to this standard, but databases typically do. Oracle actually fairly rigorously adheres to the standard, though it adds its own layer on top of it. It's PL SQL. Microsoft adds its layer on top of it. That's T-SQL, Transact SQL. MySQL, of course, adds its own layer on top of it. Postgres, at least when I was in college, Postgres was the database engine that followed the standard the closest. But even there, I think it deviates here and there. Postgres, awesome database engine. Microsoft SQL Server, aside from the licensing, you do generally have there are free-ish versions of it, but you do generally have to pay to use it. Not a bad database engine. Oracle, it's powerful, but it's pricey and it's kind of clunky to use. And if you've ever installed Oracle, it is a multi-day affair. There is no easy way to install the Oracle database server. So MySQL is kind of the best of all the worlds. It's easy to get going. It's easy to get used to. It works with most of the things that you're going to use on it. If you're just getting started in that world, you might just start with WordPress, and MySQL is kind of an obvious choice. But MySQL, great database engine, even if it doesn't necessarily support a lot of the other features that some databases have. For instance, in Microsoft SQL Server, you have this concept of a database or a catalog, and then within that you have a schema, and then within that you have tables. And in this case, schema does not mean the description of the table, the template for how the table is laid out. There's actually kind of a subgrouping within the database. Postgres has something similar. Oracle doesn't really have this concept of database. It has schemas and then tables within that. Or at least the last time I used it, that's how it felt. That might not be entirely accurate. But MySQL has essentially databases, which kind of are like a conglomeration between a database or a catalog and a schema. They're kind of somewhere in between. And then inside that, there's tables. So there isn't that third layer. It's just database and table within database. MySQL also, I think for a long time it didn't have stored procedures, though I could be wrong about that. I could be just that I never used them because MySQL is the database that I started using when I started building PHP apps, and at that time I didn't know what a stored procedure was, but I believe that it does have support for stored procedures now. But yeah, MySQL. The main reason that I continue to use MySQL is because it's so prevalent, it's so popular, it's really well documented. There are a lot of people using it for a lot of different things. It's got really good language support, C#, PHP, Rust, even, all of these languages. Pretty much any language you can think of has a binding for MySQL, even if it's just a thin layer around the MySQL C library. So yeah, MySQL, good place to be. And you might be thinking, why am I talking about databases kind of out in the middle of nowhere? You'll see. I think it's either tomorrow's video or maybe another video coming up soon. I'm actually tying together some of the things that I talked about into one project that I will show you. I'm excited to show you. It's a project that I've been working on for a few weeks, kind of combining all of those things. And there is a reason that I'm really emphasizing MySQL. So if you want to be notified when that video comes out, be sure to hit that subscribe button, click that notification bell. That'll actually get you notifications and not just have it show up in your feed. And be sure to like this video and comment down below if you have a thought as to why I might be talking about MySQL. I'd be curious to see your thoughts, and if anyone's right, you don't win anything for being right, other than the satisfaction that, aha, I knew what he was thinking, and this is where he was going. So stay tuned for that. I'm excited. I'm really excited to show you this. I think you'll find it pretty cool. I'm not going to give away too many secrets, but yeah, stay tuned for that. I will see you probably tomorrow.